When did you think about becoming a lawyer, or what kind of career plans did you have early on?
I wanted to be a truck driver. In the rural area, the only thing I could see was trucks moving up and down the road. And that looked exciting. My uncle was an oysterman. He was 6'8", 260 pounds, and he had to lift tongs down into the riverbed. I knew I couldn't do that. And the other people around me were farmers. They got up at 4 in the morning, worked till sundown. I didn't want to do that. But the truck drivers, that looked exciting. So I grew up wanting to be a truck driver, because that was the only thing I knew that looked different from what I didn't want to do.
Well, how did being a lawyer come to you?
When I was in high school, I heard about Oliver Hill in Richmond, and I was curious. And a bunch of us went down to a court case in Richmond where he was arguing. He and Spot Robinson were arguing a case, and I was impressed. And I decided then that, hey, that's what I'd like to do. And as I continued, when I got to college, I saw him again. And I decided, I know that's what I want to do. That's when I decided I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer.
You saw him in the assembly.
Well, that was later when I was a senior in college. Virginia was, it was a year and a half after Brown. Virginia was in the middle of its massive resistance effort. And I read in the paper that the General Assembly was going to consider a plan to frustrate desegregation. So I went down and testified. I was the only student, and there were 36 adults. And I represent the student government of Virginia Union University. Mr. Hill represented the state NAACP, state conference. And he was masterful. He was Oliver Hill at his best. I mean, there was 140 legislators, all men, all white men, all elderly white men, no women, no young people. And they were assembled in one room in what they call a joint session. Mr. Hill stood there and shook his fists and dared them to pass these laws. And I was frightened, frankly. I said, what is he doing? You know, and then when he banged his fist on the desk and said, if you do this, he said, we're going to beat you. And I looked for a place to hide because I knew they were going to haul him away. But he was intent, his temple was throbbing, and whenever Oliver gets excited, his temple starts throbbing. And it was a masterful speech. So I got up and made my speech on behalf of the student body. And when I finished, Oliver came over and patted me on the shoulder. He said, good talk, young man. I said, what are you going to do when you grow up? He said, I said, well, I want to be a lawyer. He said, well, why don't you come and work with me? I need some help. I was a college student. I said, okay, we shook hands. And I had a job. And little did I know that was my future law partner.
What did you say that day? What was your speech about?
I was angry.
Did you have written remarks, or did you?
No, I spoke from the gut. I had been brought up with interracial dialogue groups. The National Conference of Christian Jews had dialogue going on between blacks and whites. And I was impressed.
High school, college?
This was college. And I was impressed that young white people and I were communicating. We were making progress. When Brown came along, all of a sudden, they cut out the dialogue. Just like the Urban League was closed down, the white people withdrew support from the Urban League. I mean, it was awful. And I was frustrated because I thought that this was wrong. And so when I read in the paper what was going on, and these people were actually being unlawful, so I went out and expressed my indignation over what was going on and said that this was wrong and that the people, didn't want this. And I urged them on behalf of students, because it's our future. I said, it's our country, and you know, you shouldn't do this. You should follow the law. And you know, and the newspaper reported it the next day, and they had 36 adults and one student spoke. And of course, the president called me in of Virginia Union, and I thought he was going to lay me out. He said, you didn't get my permission to go down and speak. And I said, well, no, sir, I wasn't representing the college. I was representing the student government. I'm president of student government.
Sure, you were already.
And I had already checked with my officers to make sure they would back me up. And he said, yeah, but you know, we are supported by trustees, and they are prominent people in the community, and you should check with me. He said, so happened, they called me, and they were very proud of what you did, and they were pleased that Virginia Union was represented. Said, but you know, next time you check with me. So I said, Dr. Henderson, if I had checked with you, what would you have told me?
Mm-hmm.
And he smiled and chuckled. He said, well, next time you check with me. So I knew I had done the right thing.
Did you get any kind of negative comment about this appearance?
No.
None at all?
No, the students were pleased, and Dr. Henderson was pleased, and I felt good about it. I felt, at least I'd done something.
Mm-hmm. Next step for you then is law school.
Right.
And how did you decide on a law school?
Well, I applied at University of Virginia, and they were about to consider African American students. So they sent me a letter back saying that you have to spend $100 to take a test to see if you have the aptitude to attend law school.
Mm-hmm.
And I also applied at Howard. They wrote me back and said, you accepted. We have a scholarship for you, and because you're a Virginia resident, the state of Virginia will pay us $150 or $200 a semester to educate you, mm-hmm. and we'll help you get a part-time job if you need to. So I accepted Howard,
mm-hmm.
just like that. I mean, it was an easy choice, and it was the best thing ever happened to me because I was thrown in with other African-American students and future leaders from all over the South, and that helped my development and that helped my growth.